After Oswald the Lucky Rabbit's popularity started to decline, animator Walter Lantz needed a new character. The problem was, this was the year 1940. Disney were dominating the Academy Awards, Popeye was still a big draw, and Looney Tunes characters were rising stars in the world of animation, while that same year Tom and Jerry made their debut. Yet despite this, a new character still managed to emerge among these cartoon stars, and his name was Woody Woodpecker, whose endearing design and iconic laugh instantly took the world by storm. Few characters have evolved as much as Woody Woodpecker, who went from being a dangerous lunatic to a cuddly pantomime everyman to being the official mascot of Universal Pictures, while his lack of a language barrier has endeared him to a global audience for generations. Today we're looking back at the famous Woodpecker's 80-year history in animation, and paying tribute to Woody Woodpecker's place among the pantheon of Golden Age cartoon characters. In 1928, American animator Walter Lantz was hired by Charles B. Mintz to replace Walt Disney as director and producer of Disney's Oswald the Lucky Rabbit cartoon series for Universal Pictures. Featuring Bill Nolan as an animator and later director, the Lantz-produced Oswalds had a decidedly different tone and aesthetic compared to the original Disney shorts, with more slapstick and surreal visual gags, some contributed by a young Tex Avery. And over the next decade, Lantz would produce 142 Oswald cartoons in total. Walt Disney reacted positively to Lantz's takeover of the series, holding Lantz's work in high regard and forming a friendly rivalry that lasted until Disney's death. But when Oswald's popularity dwindled due to the success of Walt Disney's Mickey Mouse series, Lantz needed a new character. Lantz and his staff conceptualized various characters. One character stood out, Andy Panda, and soon became Lantz's headline star for the 1939 to 1940 production season. The first Andy Panda film was called Life Begins for Andy Panda and was released on October 9, 1939. The short capitalized on public interest surrounding the United States' first captive panda, Sue Lin, who had been donated to the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago 3 years earlier, and whose arrival created a consumer desire for panda-related products. Walter Lantz would direct Andy Panda's fourth cartoon, Crazy House, and in his fifth cartoon, Knock Knock, released on November 25, 1940, Lantz introduced the character Woody Woodpecker. According to Lantz himself, he came up with the character during his honeymoon with actress Grace Stafford, whom he married 3 months earlier in August 1940. And throughout their honeymoon, the two kept hearing a woodpecker incessantly pecking on their roof. Grace suggested that Walter use the bird for inspiration as a cartoon character. And although skeptical, Lantz took her advice and created the brash woodpecker character, similar to the early Daffy Duck. Lantz's biographer Joe Adamson shared a different account. Ben Hardaway and L.E. Eliot had written a story where Andy Panda and his father, Papa Panda, experienced roof troubles caused by a rainstorm. Lantz thought the storyboard would be too expensive to animate. He needed a roofing problem that was easier to animate, and suggested a pesky bird like a woodpecker, a bird which had appeared in a couple of Lantz's cartoons from the 1930s. As well as being the first appearance of Woody Woodpecker, Knock Knock is also the first cartoon to feature Woody's trademark laugh. One that voice artist Mel Blanc had been perfecting since high school. Blanc had already used a similar laugh for an earlier prototype of Bugs Bunny in 2 cartoons directed by Ben Hardaway at Leon Schlesinger Productions. Lantz claimed that Alex Lovey, director of the first Andy Panda cartoon, created the original design for Woody, but many animators at Walter Lantz studio agreed that Ben Hardaway, who had a liking for screwball characters, drew the original design for Woody Woodpecker. The earliest designs were very unpopular. Hardaway showed a prototype drawing of Woody to Mel Blanc, who said it was the ugliest thing he had ever seen. and even after the design was improved, this sentiment was shared by Universal Studios' then distributor Bernie Kreiser, who also thought Woody was the ugliest thing he had ever seen, but Lantz convinced Kreiser to include the character in the short. Andy Panda achieved considerable popularity and would continue to appear in cartoon shorts until 1949, but his popularity was quickly supplanted by Woody Woodpecker, whose cameo appearance in Knock Knock stole the show, and Woody was quickly given his own series of cartoons. His first cartoon, simply titled Woody Woodpecker, was also produced by Walter Lantz Productions and distributed by Universal Pictures, and was released theatrically on July 7, 1941. Voice actor Mel Blanc voiced Woody Woodpecker in this cartoon and would voice him in the next cartoon, entitled The Screwdriver, released on August 11th, and did so again for the final time in Woody's fourth appearance and his third official cartoon, entitled Pantry Panic, before Blanc left to work exclusively for Leon Schlesinger Productions. Pantry Panic contains some lines recorded by Mel Blanc before his departure, while the remaining dialogue was voiced by Danny Webb. Woody would be voiced by a number of different voice actors over the years, being voiced by Kent Rogers in his next 5 cartoons. After Rogers went into the service due to the Second World War, Dick Nelson voiced Woody in the 1943 cartoon Ration Board, before being replaced by Ben Hardaway, who contributed to Woody's original design and who developed the story for Woody's first cartoon, Knock Knock. Hardaway became the voice for Woody Woodpecker in 1944, starting with The Barber of Seville, which was the first cartoon to feature a new character design for Woody Woodpecker by art director Art Heineman. Woody's design was already softened by 1942 and later changed into a much more realistic and easier to animate Woodpecker by 1944. In addition to the new design, The Barber of Seville was also the first Woody Woodpecker cartoon to use the standardized opening title card, featuring Woody popping out of a log asking, "Guess who?" and delivering his trademark laugh. The audio for this opening sequence is lifted from Woody's first starring appearance in the 1941 cartoon Woody Woodpecker, in which Woody was voiced by Mel Blanc. The 1944 short The Beech Nut introduced the character Wally Walrus, initially voiced by Jack Mather, and who was Woody's first major recurring foil. Wally is an anthropomorphic walrus who speaks with a Swedish accent and is quick to anger when provoked. The short, Wet Blanket Policy, was released in 1948 and featured the first appearance of Buzz Buzzard, an anthropomorphic vulture, who would remain the primary antagonist in the majority of the remaining Woody Woodpecker shorts. The character's appearance changed dramatically throughout the years and was initially voiced by actor Lionel Stander in the 1940s, with Dallas McKennon taking over the role in the 1950s. The cartoon Wet Blanket Policy was also notable for including the Woody Woodpecker song, which became an unexpected hit for the studio, and was the first and only song from an animated short subject to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Song in 1948. The Woody Woodpecker song featured Mel Blanc's laugh, and Blanc later sued Walter Lantz for $500,000, claiming that Lantz had used his voice in later cartoons without permission. The judge ruled in favor of Lantz, saying that Blanc had failed to copyright his voice or his contributions. Though Lantz won the case, he paid Blanc in an out-of-court settlement when Blanc filed an appeal, and Lantz began searching for a new voice for Woody Woodpecker. In 1950, Lantz held anonymous auditions. His wife, Grace, offered to do Woody's voice, but Lantz turned it down because Woody was a male character. Unperturbed, Grace made her own anonymous audition tape and submitted it to the studio anyway. Not knowing who was behind the voice, Lantz chose Grace's voice for Woody Woodpecker, and Grace applied Woody's voice until the end of production in 1972. In the early 1940s, Woody Woodpecker was depicted as an aggressive lunatic, not just a madcap screwball character, but certifiably insane, who was seen as unstable and dangerous by the other characters. This changed in 1946 when Walter Lantz hired Disney veteran Dick Lundy to direct Woody's cartoons. Lundy would tone the character down and make him more defensive, and also paid more attention to animation, making Woody's new films more Disney-esque in their design, style, animation, and timing. Former Disney animators such as Fred Moore and Ed Love began working at Lantz the following year and assisted Lundy in adding touches of the Disney style to Woody's cartoons. Despite the Disney style added for the later cartoons, Woody's cartoons still tried to maintain a good dose of slapstick and madcap humor from the pre-Lundy cartoons. Financial problems that united artists as a result of the Paramount case affected Walter Lantz, who received much lower revenues from United Artists' distribution of his cartoons than his returns had been from Universal. And in 1949, due to these financial difficulties, Walter Lantz Productions shut down and remained closed for a full calendar year. By keeping the studio closed while the Woody Woodpecker cartoons were still in distribution, Lantz was able to generate enough income to pay off the studio's debts and upgrade the studio, after which time Walter Lantz Productions finally reopened with a reduced staff. The studio's first new project was an animated segment of the feature film Destination Moon, released in 1950 and produced by Lantz's good friend George Pell. In the segment, astronauts are shown an animated educational film featuring Woody Woodpecker explaining rocket propulsion, and marks the first time Woody Woodpecker was voiced by Walt Lantz's wife, Grace Stafford. Her version of Woody was also cuter and friendlier than the manic Woody of the 1940s, and Lantz's artists redesigned the character to suit the new personality. Mel Blanc's distinctive laugh was still used throughout the cartoons until 1951, but Grace also recorded her own version of Woody's trademark laugh, which was used in the Woody Woodpecker shorts that would follow, beginning with Puny Express, the first Woody Woodpecker cartoon produced after the hiatus. The next cartoon, Sleep Happy, was the last to be directed by Dick Lundy, and over the next years the cartoons would be directed by various other directors. These shorts also marked a departure from past cartoons, which were dialogue-driven. Grace Stafford's job in voicing Woody during this time was limited, as he and other characters rarely spoke in the first dozen or so shorts, and as a result of these entries, Woody became popular outside the English-speaking world, thanks to the lack of a language barrier, similar to Tom and Jerry before and the Pink Panther shorts of the 1960s and 1970s, which also enjoyed worldwide popularity due to this pantomime style. Later Woody Woodpecker shorts returned the cartoon to being more dialogue-driven, with Stafford continuing to provide Woody's voice, while other voicing roles during this period were generally split between Dallas McKennon and Dawes Butler. Several of Woody's recurring co-stars were also introduced during this era, such as Gabby Gator, as well as Woody Woodpecker's girlfriend, Winnie Woodpecker, also voiced by Grace Stafford. Lantz continued to struggle financially, but Woody's longevity was secured when he made the jump to television in the Woody Woodpecker Show on ABC. The half-hour program consisted of 3 theatrical Woody shorts, followed by a brief look at cartoon creation, hosted by Lantz himself. The Woody Woodpecker Show ran from 1957 to 1958, then entered syndication until 1966, before NBC revived the show in 1970 and 1976. But Woody's presence on television meant Lantz had to meet the stringent rules against violence for children's television. And by the early 1960s, Woody had evolved to the point where he was no longer dishing out abuse to his foils, but was instead on the receiving end. The first significant short to feature Woody as a serious, exploited character was 1961's Frankenstein. Woody's popularity up to this point had been based on his manic craziness, but by 1961 this had all but been eliminated in favor of a more serious Woody, a straight man trying to do good. Woody appeared in new theatrical shorts until 1972, when Lantz closed his studio due to rising production costs. Bye Bye Blackboard, released on September 1st, 1972, was the final entry in the original Woody Woodpecker series before the Lantz studio closed its doors forever. In 1985, Walter Lantz sold his library of Woody Woodpecker shorts to MCA Universal, who repackaged the cartoons for another syndicated Woody Woodpecker show in 1987. A year later, Woody made a cameo in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, voiced by Cherry Davis, and in 1991, a Woody Woodpecker mascot appeared in a public service announcement video called Let's All Recycle with Woody Woodpecker. In 1999, Woody was finally rebooted in the Fox Kids series, The New Woody Woodpecker Show, produced by Universal Cartoon Studios and which ran on Saturday mornings from 1999 to 2002. While the Woody Woodpecker Show from the 1950s was an anthology series featuring Woody's classic theatrical cartoons, the New Woody Woodpecker Show was the first original Woody Woodpecker television series, with Woody's design resembling his appearance from the mid-1940s, and this time Woody was voiced by Billy West. Each episode consists of 2 segments featuring Woody Woodpecker, dividing one segment starring Chilly Willy, another popular character from Walter Lantz studio. The New Woody Woodpecker Show featured characters from the original cartoon series and introduced a few new ones, appearing in their own segments, including Splinter and Knothead, the nephew and niece of Woody Woodpecker. The 2 first appeared in animation in the mid-1950s and became prominent characters in the New Woody Woodpecker Show. The show also featured an astonishing array of recognizable voice talent, from Mark Hamill and Tim Curry to Frank Welker and Charlie Adler, and even Dan Castellaneta. The New Woody Woodpecker Show debuted on the Fox Kids programming block and aired from May 8, 1999 to July 27, 2002, running for 52 episodes, as well as one episode-length Christmas special. In 2017, Woody Woodpecker starred in his first theatrical film, a live-action CGI hybrid film entitled Woody Woodpecker, also known as Woody Woodpecker the Movie, directed by Alex Zamm and produced by Universal Animation Studios. The film features Eric Bauza as the voice of Woody Woodpecker, and the film's plot follows Woody protecting his forest from a real estate lawyer planning to build an investment house in his habitat. While Woody Woodpecker was filmed in English, it was only released theatrically in the Latin American market, which the film catered to and where the character is most popular, with Brazilians being the primary target audience in mind. Elsewhere, it was released primarily as a direct-to-video feature. From 2018 to 2022, a new series of Woody Woodpecker cartoons streamed exclusively for YouTube, simply titled Woody Woodpecker. The series was produced by Universal Studios in collaboration with Splash Entertainment, and the first season was directed by Alex Zamm, who also directed the 2017 film, while the second and third seasons were directed by Mike Milo. Many of the voice actors from the New Woody Woodpecker Show returned, and the reboot was notable for being the first Woody Woodpecker series to not feature any human characters, but instead an all-animal cast, but did pay tribute to the original Woody Woodpecker shorts in its intro, which was similar to the introduction of Woody Woodpecker shorts from the 1950s to the 1970s. The show also paid tribute to Woody's massive popularity in Brazil, by featuring a number of episodes featuring Woody visiting the country. 30 shorts were released exclusively for the official Woody Woodpecker YouTube channels in Brazilian Portuguese, Spanish, and English, running for 3 seasons until 2022. And in 2024, a sequel to the 2017 Woody Woodpecker movie was released, entitled Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp, and once again featured Eric Bauza as the voice of Woody, as well as Kevin Michael Richardson as Buzz Buzzard and Tom Kenny as Wally Walrus. Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp was released on Netflix on April 12, 2024, and in an interview with AnimationScoop.com, the film's director, John Rosenbaum, hinted at the possibility of a third film in the franchise. Woody's creator Walter Lantz was good friends with film director George Pell, who would have Woody Woodpecker cameo in nearly every film that Pell produced or directed. Woody Woodpecker serves as the official mascot of Universal Pictures, and on September 13, 1990, Woody was given his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Outside of animation, Woody Woodpecker had been the star of a number of comic book series lasting up until the early 1980s, and several Woody Woodpecker video games have been released on multiple platforms over the years. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Please like this video if you learned something today, and let us know in the comments where you think Woody Woodpecker stands among the pantheon of Golden Age cartoon characters. I'll be back again soon, so remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more cartoon history.